peoples, what's up? Welcome to Shelf Stories, the channel that tells tales from games, books, and life. I am your host, Jason. Thank you so much for stopping by for this latest episode of Thinking Out Loud, where I engage in editorial presentations and conversations about things that are happening all over the place in board gaming, and I invite everyone out there to participate in the discussion, whether in the YouTube comments or privately or wherever else you feel like reaching out to me. I'm very happy to discuss. So before I get into today's topic, I would like to tell you a little bit more about my channel. If this is the first time that you are here. Shelf Stories is my editorial space where I can comment on all sorts of things, different topics around. So I have Thinking Out Loud, which is where I kind of talk about board gaming in general. I have Good Trouble, where I talk about culture and diversity issues. Shelf Help, where I talk about mental health issues and history chats, book chats. I have all sorts of buckets and playlists. Go ahead and check out my channel. I'd really appreciate it. I got a little subscribe button right there, like on every video. Like the video, and please spread the word about Shelf Stories. I will never, ever monetize this space. I want this to be ad-free, and I want this to be about the ideas and the discussion as far as possible. So the topic du jour is Descent Legends of the Dark. It just released a big honking adventure game, latest in the line from Fantasy Flight, following up on first edition and second edition. I'll have more to say about the follow-up aspect to it in a second, but it is a giant adventure game. People are getting it from their pre-orders, and content creators are weighing in with their opinions. And boy, are people weighing in with their opinions. This graph is a definition of polarized. You know, we got plenty of 10s, we got plenty of 1s, and I think a thing that people are asking online is why. Why are people so mad? Why are people so polarized? And I don't like just leave it as, well, it's the internet, people are going to get mad. I think, there are some legitimate concerns that this raises, that this big blimp is just plopped right into the middle of our hobby. And, that's the reason why this is, I want to have this conversation. I don't just want to pick off every game, but Descent is one of those kind of central titles. It's very influential. People are gonna designers and publishers and people who are following adventure gaming are gonna follow the lead. In a way, Descent is following a lead from other places, but this is going to set the pace. It's not just about this game; it's about the future of gaming in general, but adventure gaming and big box gaming in particular. Okay, so. Of these 1 ratings, there were a bunch of people who, actually articulated their opinions. So I want to read one of them that I think encapsulates a lot of the streams of criticism at once. All right. So, quote, horrible revamp of the series. Renders all previous material useless. $180 is way too much for this. The artwork is horrible compared to Journeys. You spend more time in the app than the actual board. I don't mind app-driven games, but this is just stupid. A lot there that comes together. So I think reading through the comments, the majority of them were talking about the app-driven experience. Is this a video game? Is this a board game? I don't want video games in my board games. And that's a totally acceptable and cool conversation to have. One that I would like to participate in. I wanted to talk about something a little bit different today. Also, the second edition or the third edition of this, or is this third edition? It's a very muddled kind of marketing experience, because I think that the Fantasy Flight wanted to say, okay, this is a game in the Descent line. More Descent. This isn't, first, second, third edition. It's not, improving upon or cutting off or building upon the previous stuff. It's just its own thing. That is not how it has been received, because if you release a giant box of adventure, we are going to assume that it is a follow-up to the previous giant boxes of adventure. And there's a lot of stuff available for Descent 2nd Edition, and it has a decent fan base. I think people are still enjoying it and, getting new models for it. They don't release new models for nothing, so people are still enjoying it and playing it, collecting it, painting it, all the other stuff. What's this follow-up? It seems a little bit messy. Here's a line of criticism that was not involved in this comment, but it's important. I think there are a lot of commenters that noted that there seemed to be a little bit of a personal edge, maybe, to the criticism. Quote, was really looking forward to the game because I was a big Descent 2nd Edition fan. The price point suggests a team of people who don't know what they're doing, and the preview with the game designer left me with even less faith. It's a new design by new, unproven designers. Okay, I mean, that's an interesting comment. The design team doesn't seem to have a lot of actual credits for them, but if you look a little bit deeper, they've been involved with the development of the game for years now, or at least the previous editions, but working behind the scenes of Fantasy Flight. Is there some latent misogyny? This is a issue that I talk about here on Shelf Stories, women's creative panel in gaming, talking about the misogyny in gaming, how latent and unconscious and layered behind like seemingly benign words is. So I don't want to take away from anything else that is a part of the discourse here. Those are all really, I want to just treat them as their own things, and treat them all with respect. The thing I wanted to focus on, very simple. $180 is way too much for this. And to be clear, to be accurate, $175. So you're $5 off. But if you're getting it, at different places, they have different places sell it for different things. But you are not going to get this for anything less than that $175 figure. And there is, weeping and wailing and gnashing of teeth, consternation, just, what is happening to my hobby? People remember, 2015, 16 was like a big, growth point for the hobby. So many big games, cool games coming out. You had your Size, your Terraforming Marses, and your Gloomhavens, and you could get those games, on Kickstarter, and basically big full experiences for around $70 to $100. The games at the center of the hobby were in that price range. Now we're having games where, I'm not saying that everybody's gonna go out and play Descent right now, but the new games that people are talking about. $180. That is a massive, disorienting, thing to happen. My wages didn't go up. I'm venturing to say not a lot of people's wages went up that much. And to see that we're spending that much money, people are wondering, what is happening to my hobby? I don't like it. And so, to be clear, pricing like this has been a part of Kickstarter model for years. People have been shelling out lots of buckaroos on, the latest and greatest. I think part of it is now this is a perfectly centralized retail thing that has adopted that Kickstarter bleed of pricing. I know prices are going up in general, but just, the rise of, how expensive this is, just kind of bleeds in from that Kickstarter model where people are willing to spend that much. And now here it is. And I think there's an idea that okay, if this is, that publishers, not just Fantasy Flight, are going to get the message that this is the way to go and that there'll be a market for it. All right. And that is the core defense, right? It's the market. Period, point blank, end of story. People are going to pay it. That publishers are going to follow the money, follow the incentive. Boom, done. If people want to pay it, then fine. If you're not willing to pay it, then don't get it. I think you've heard that plenty. It's like, you're not owed games. You are, nobody has the right to play every game. So, if some people can have it, don't be jealous, don't be haters, let them have it. And, there's plenty of games for you, plenty of low cost games, plenty of games for you to, there's games for everybody to enjoy. Something along those lines. Something along the lines of the market is speaking. And this is what the market is saying. So, we're just gonna have to live with it. Not quite good enough for me because, the market doesn't care about human psychology. And I think that there's an aspect of human psychology that is completely and totally being missed. I think that there are two separate things that are happening that I see as linked. And I want to try to, just offer my case and see if people are compelled that I should be linking these two things. I honestly think that the rising prices of our games in our hobby, not just on Kickstarter, but now in the center of our hobby, makes people more unhappy. Rising prices equals misery. Really, it's inequality that equals misery. And I get this from social psychology. I'm a social psychologist, and my mental health is my bag. I'm a psychotherapist. See it every day. So this is one of a billion studies that you can find. You can find all sorts of studies about this, about income inequality on a global scale or on a national scale, or, just kind of in life, making people unhappy. To quote from this particular article, which is from Business Insider, the flip side of daily emotional positive experiences are negative emotional experiences. We did find that this rise along with the incomes of the top 1%. In societies where the richest hold most of the country's income, people were more likely to report feeling stressed, worried, angry on the day before survey. What do I mean by inequality? I mean that, like, on a basic level, there are haves and have-nots when it comes to these huge prices of games. Like, I think there's this idea that people can afford it. So therefore the market is speaking, people, whatever people means. Well, what does that mean? Well, we have actual concrete numbers, not with Descent. I don't know what the print run is of Descent. Don't have a lot of context up in Fantasy Flight. However, we have the big Kickstarters like Frosthaven, the biggest Kickstarter ever, 13 million made, about 193, if you want to know the exact number of backers, so somewhere around the 80,000 range of people. So then others, you have an example of Chronicles of Druganor, which just finished on GameFound. Actually, you had over $1 million made with 2,200 backers. That one is noteworthy because, gameplay all in is like somewhere around $600. And there were not an insignificant number of those people who went gameplay all in, $600. Give me my Chronicles of Druganor. Seeing that there are people that are buying it, I think that folks are getting the mess that, like, people are, this is an acceptable thing and the market understood, as a broad thing. But that's not gaming. I think of big conventions, there's hundreds of thousands of people that attend these things or used to attend these things. Hopefully they'll be attending these things safely down the road. But there's hundreds of thousands of people. I think of BGG. BGG records somewhere around 3 million unique visits a month. Million. That is way higher than 80,000. So, you think of the different groups. 20,000, 30,000, 50,000 strong groups in, the different Facebook groups, and some of them are the same and a lot of them are different. So you have a whole class of people that are not backing these games, that are not, or they can't afford to back these games. So we can say to those people, don't be jelly. Let people enjoy their stuff if they have it, and you have other games that you can play, but that is not human psychology. When you put two unequal things together in proximity, that makes a difference. If I have a game and I'm cool with it, then I'm cool with it. It's fine. But if I have a game over here and then another very more expensive, beautiful, more deluxe game is right there, it is going to affect how I enjoy this game. If I have a cone of ice cream, and it's a delicious cone of ice cream, it's a hot summer day, I'm recording in August, so much heat, and I'm enjoying my ice cream, that's great. But then someone else walks out of the ice cream shop with a double scoop with a sprinkles and frosting and a big old nice old cone, and I'm sitting there with my cup of ice cream going, wouldn't that be nice? It's human psychology, and it's an effect that we call it's a proximity effect, right? Our happiness is affected by how close these unequal things are together. So why is it that income inequality makes whole countries less happy? Because we see it. Lifestyles of the rich and famous and all these other things that we see on TV or we see in our neighborhoods, people that have nice things or see on social media. That's a hidden reason why social media is kind of making us miserable in general, is because where things we didn't used to see that before, now we see the comparisons and it's just there. So like the things that we have used to make us happy, but then having it so close is ginning up the unhappiness. So I actually, I kind of think Kickstarter is really implicated in this. I've been saying it a lot, but now I'm going to get to my point about Kickstarter is really implicated. So before you would have, in the before times, you'd have your base game and it would be, right there. And then there would be kind of expansions rolled out later. Some games still do this, but that used to be like kind of the core model. So you had your big expensive games, but the base game was always available and there was never this kind of, or wasn't as present in our focus to have expansion, right? It was always dribbled out and you really, you didn't see it, out of sight, out of mind. So it's like, all right, I'm happy with my base game. What Kickstarter did was put everything together for people to see. kicks up the FOMO, kicks up that thing in our back of our brains that goes, I don't want to miss out. I don't want to get the less than full experience. I don't want to experience less than what this other person is experiencing. So I'm going to do that. Let's just take a example that's happening right now as I post this. Flamecraft. Flamecraft, not a big adventure game, not anything that I'm talking about. The pricing for the base game is one thing, and then the pricing for the deluxe edition, no gameplay added, just game trays and nicer components and a nice little bag. It's another. Look at the difference in backers. We can say you make the if you have the money, you should do it, and it's either rational choice. You can't tell people what to do, and I agree with that. But I have to ask the question: for the 7,000 some odd backers that went in on Flamecraft, are you really backing it because you are happier with the deluxe thing and it works perfectly in your finances, or is there that pull that, well, if I have a nicer thing right in front of me, even if it's doesn't make sense for my finances, even if I don't really have the money and I don't really need it, I don't want to have the worst thing. Some people make that decision, so the tier is there and there are backers, but there's that pull, and a lot of us succumb to that pull. Gameplay all in. The gameplay all in model is just rife with this, and it happens all the time. It's almost relentless. Aventuria adventure card game, gameplay all in, $700 American dollars plus. Oh my god. When I saw that, I almost fainted. And Aventuria is a good game. I've played the base games a couple of years ago. I'm not a huge adventure card game person because I like the money, obviously. But seeing that there, and if you want to go on Aventuria and you want to go on to the base game, but having that all in right there just tickles the back of our brains, and it just, obviously you make our rational decisions, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about just the agita, the angst that having those so close together generates. Proximity effect. Chronicles of Jugunor, I mentioned it before, the all-in, pledge. Here you go. So many other projects just release the full product cycle there for you. And, it's pitched as, so this is good, this is a service, you don't have to have it, but, you don't want to, but then there's that other thing, you don't want to miss out. It's exclusive. And even if it isn't meaningful to the game, it's still just bleeding over and creating this kind of misery effect. So I wonder, when it comes to like the rising prices of games, are these prices rising because of rationalization that the market is acting on, the market, or is there a unequal thing happening where the deluxe is made and or the all in, or whatever you want to call it, the more expensive thing, the more that has all the things. We're putting both of those things in front of people. Some people can afford and they're happy and they're posting and whatever. Then there's like I think a growing class of people that either they'll go for it because they don't want to miss out and they don't really feel great about that decision, or it just, because the comparison is there, just makes people unhappy to be in that space. All right, so that's my case. I really feel like, a big blimp like Descent with that giant cost in the middle of the retail space of the hobby, imported from Kickstarter. And Kickstarter just has its own things when it comes to, the misery that it generates. I believe the misery that it generates with the FOMO and the proximity issue and all that kind of stuff. It is, I think, another blow, another thing that is just kicking up people's misery. I think that we need to be more careful about how we talk about the market, and that things have consequences, and that we need to think of cost in a more holistic way. We can talk about, the margins and, this makes a better margin and I'm trying to do this and I'm trying to do that. As from a business perspective, we can talk in terms of those numbers. And, believe me, I've had plenty of people do it where they show me that, they show me the numbers and they're like, look, I have to do it this way. And I just say to myself, okay, that's all numbers. What is happening to us psychologically? What's happening to us as a community? And these rising prices are just, they're hitting people in the fields. It's widening a sense of inequality. And where you have more inequality, haves and have-nots, can play, can't play, has access, does not have access. You could tell them until they're blue in the face, oh, enjoy the stuff. And there's plenty of people that are making low-cost games. You stick the more expensive thing right in people's faces, they're just going to be more miserable. It plays out in the world. It plays out, in all sorts of places. And I think it's playing out in the hobby. So I've made my case for a critique of prices from a psychological perspective. And there is so much that I could say, and I'll just kind of like mention some stuff, not in terms of stuff that I want to dive into, but to show you that I am thinking in a more broad way about these rising prices. Because it isn't just the Kickstarter effect and the all-in, FOMO psychology aspect. There's also rising prices when it comes to shipping. This is a nightmare. I don't know if people are really following what's going on in terms of the rising prices. It's been some really, really great pieces about, why shipping is so expensive nowadays and how that is going to affect rising prices in the long run. Well, if we talking about, shipping from China or whatever it is, that $180 game, which has this kind of like psychological inflation effect. Well, is that going to become $200? Is a retail product just straight up base experience going to be over $200 because of added on these shipping woes? Something we got to think about. Also, I'm a backer of a project called Earthborn Rangers. Earthborn Rangers is trying to address this in terms of the China shipping issue with some local sustainability. And they want to do more environmentally friendly products. And if you want a good environmentally friendly product and also labor friendly, more cost. If I'm going to pay more cost, I want to pay for that. I don't have to pay for whatever, 3D tiles or all-in perpetrators or anything like any of that stuff. I want to have a conversation about that. There's other aspects as well. I mean, there's prices aren't always only just inflating. There is some movement within the industry to lower the prices. Jaws of the Lion and Terraforming Mars, Ares Expedition, and a couple other games have come out with lower cost versions of them from Target. And that's a great thing, but then you get into the exclusive issue and more misery. Tell somebody something is exclusive. Again, tickle that idea that there are going to be haves and have-nots. Even though Target exclusives are only they're time limited and you can still get the game, you still pressing on that issue of haves and have-nots, and you're just going to have more misery across the board. Also, a conversation to have. I feel like this video has kind of like unleashed a whole bunch of different threads, and I'm okay with that. I'm okay with talking on the lines that I've presented, especially because it all relates to price, and it all relates to how we interact with price psychologically and how we're feeling. Because at the end of the day, this is a community. I think that we need to cultivate communities. Communities don't have by accident. We don't just like freely voluntarily associate. I think there's an aspect where we need to take care of each other. Designers, publishers, and all over the place. Publishers are asking us as consumers to bear with them because of the shipping issues. So it's like, okay, you're asking us to give you a break and da-da-da-da, but then you are doing these things to maximize your own bottom line. Not every publisher, but some, right? And it's like, okay, you've been doing that to me. Why should I have a nice relationship and give you some slack because of things that are happening on your end? So many issues to discuss. But once again, psychological perspective, I think it all comes down to human psychology and community. And if we're not centering that, then I don't really know that we're having the conversations we need to have. All right, so that is my contribution to this discussion. Please, once again, discuss in the comments. YouTube, respectful commentary, no personal attacks whatsoever. I don't care if you're on agree with me or disagree with me. Any personal attacks will be completely immediately deleted. Any dismissive comment that will, just kind of like says, okay, well, you're wrong or whatever, that's going to get deleted. But even if you disagree, even if you think that there is just kind of like I'm totally off the blue, markets are great. As long as you're engaged in the content, I will dive in and we'll have a fruitful conversation. I've been really enjoying them and I'm looking forward to continuing on this one and all topics that I do on Shelf Stories. So this is Jason reminding you, if you can change your mind, you can change the world, people. So until next time, don't be afraid to think out loud.